Very briefly, I want to go over some of the course expectations that are outlined in my syllabus. At the top, I just go over some of our units of study and the things that we generally do. Another thing I talk about a lot with students is that they are big bad 7th graders. That means I expect a little bit more from them than their teachers may have last year. And so one thing is that it is their responsibility to come to class prepared and to be organized, following the organization system that I help them build. And I'll talk a little bit about where students can find missing work if they're absent in a minute. But if your child is absent, you can always email me or have them email me or contact me through Aspen, and I can get them any work, or if there's something they can do while they're gone, I can try and get that to them. Unfortunately, if we're having a busy day, I might not be able to get back to you quite as soon as I'd like. I do expect that students bring their binder, agenda, and pen or pencil to every class. I have extra sets of other supplies that I can let them use, but that's really what they need to be successful. If they don't have their binder, students tend to lose materials and not get them where they're supposed to be. They're usually not ready for our notebook checks, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Agendas are important. We want to help kids learn how to be responsible for themselves. As adults, we know we have to have some sort of system of making sure we are where we're supposed to be at the time, whether you put it in your phone or have a calendar. The agendas are one system that we help students use so that in the future they'll have that option as something that they can use to be successful. And so students should be writing down assignments in their agenda daily. So if you're looking at a student's agenda and it does not have assignments written down, that's a problem. As teachers, we remind them to do that daily. And then pen or pencil. It'd be wonderful if every couple months or even in January, you could check in with your child and make sure they have enough pencils. They tend to get lost very quickly. Homework policy is very similar to what other teachers do. All assignments are considered late. If they are not with the student at the start of the block, they are due. And so I rarely let students go back to their lockers. I want them to get used to coming in and having everything and being prepared, and I don't want to lose that valuable class time. So they get a 0 if they're not turned in, and then if they're turned in late, that changes to a 50%. And that, I'll talk about it a little bit in more detail when we look at our grading scale, but that can really help students if they aren't doing their homework to get it turned in later. Of course, it'd be better if it were turned in on time. Projects, if we're doing something larger, those are usually done in class, but if those aren't turned in on time, that's 10 points off for each block that they are late. And I rarely have them do a project at home that they haven't at least done most of it at school. As a teacher, I like to use technology whenever it can add value to my instruction. So if it can make a task more interactive or help students connect more with the history, then I like to use the technology that's available. And so students will be doing a variety of different things with technology throughout the year. Devices are not required. I will always have extra devices for students to use. And it would be great if students bring their own devices, but not required again. And so as you can see, we might be doing research, we might be listening to podcasts outside, we might be completing a web quest or doing a project that requires technology. Additionally, there's a blended learning requirement. This is something the school division put in place a couple years ago. We had quite a bit of snow and missed a lot of school, and so we had to extend the school day. And so in order to avoid that happening again, because it was awful, the school division said that in certain courses, then students would complete 8 hours of online instruction outside of the classroom. And so my course is one of those. And so throughout the year, there will be small chunks of assignments. I just ask that I will give those in advance. I give them at least a couple days in advance to allow students the opportunity, if you need to make arrangements to do something, to go to a computer at the library, or if the student needs to go to a friend's house or whatever it is, I will give you that in advance. I just ask that you communicate with me and we can make sure that the students can do them, because in general, those are assignments that I expect all students to do as if they were in class. So they might be a review assignment that's going to help get them ready for tests or quizzes, or it might be a learning activity that I expect that they are going to learn the content. We're going to use Microsoft Teams, which is in Office 365, and I'll introduce that quite a bit with students so that they are familiar with it before those are assigned at home. As far as our extra credit, students will have the opportunity to correct tests to improve their grade. Otherwise, there's no extra credit for this class, again, unless specified. I'll talk more about notebook checks in a couple minutes, but just thinking about them, I envision them as serving three purposes. They assess student organization, and they help students check their understanding of content before a test, because they are always given the class before a test. And they also allow me as the teacher to grade the many small assignments that they might complete without me having to collect them. So they are important for a variety of reasons, and I'll talk more about that again in a minute. If we look at our course weighting, the one thing I do want to point out is that homework is worth 10%. That is not a lot. However, if your child never does homework, that adds up. And so even if they are, Einstein, if they never do their homework, they cannot get an A. It's impossible. And so my homework is usually very short. It's just designed to get them thinking about the information, to help them remember it. And when they do it, they'll probably also do better on tests and quizzes, because it is that information that will be on the test or quiz. Please remember to check Aspen for class updates, homework, quiz, and test dates. I try and post quiz and test dates are up very far in advance. Homework, I try and have that posted, but again, the best place to look for that is your child's agenda. If you have questions about Aspen and you're not quite sure how to get it to do something, please use this link here. This is the YCSD Aspen guide for parents that most people don't know about, but it has a lot of really good information about how to find things in Aspen and even how to set Aspen so that it sends you an email alert whenever your child has a grade below a certain amount. Like you can say, every time my child gets a grade below a 60, I want an email. And you can set that so it's automatic. You can also email me. You can contact me through Aspen or my email at mmoses@ycsd.york.va.us. Please include your child's name and block in the subject line. I teach over 150 kids, so that is very helpful. And then you can use this information to sign up for text message reminders. So you send a message to 81010. And if your child's in history on A days, you send the @Moses A Day code. And if it's B days, you send the @Moses B Day code. So when we are walking down the hall and students come into my room, one of the first things they're going to see over here is this hot pink late work bin. And students know that this is where late assignments go. And I've let them know that they can, even if they're walking down the hallway, drop that down even in between classes. I also keep extra pencils for students up here and even fast finisher work. When students come into class, they'll go over to their seats, and the first thing they need to do is look over at the whiteboard to the side. This whiteboard contains a lot of important information, including, our date, but also it'll have information about their due now, which is the warm-up assignment they complete as soon as they enter the room. And then they also have their homework assignments and other future assignments are posted. And so the students have about 5 minutes at the beginning of class where they'll do the do now and copy down the homework. And I try and make sure to remind them that they get those done. It's really important that students get homework copied in their agenda so that they know in the future what is due and when. The other thing that's important is that students have posted up here missing assignments or things that they were absent for. If a student is absent, they need to contact me and we can get this set. You can email me, or the student can email me, or they can come see me in person. But those assignments will be up there and all they have to do is grab me and I'll explain what they need to do. One of the other things up here is our table of contents. Unfortunately, we do not have a textbook for this class, so instead we treat our binder as if we are building a textbook. And so every page that we get is going to get a number. Students are going to copy that into their table of contents, and then I have the running list of the table of contents that is up on the board. So they have time to copy down that when they get the papers, and then as we get closer to a notebook check, this will be up on the board and I will update it on my Aspen account. Notebook checks will include questions like what page is something on. They might ask students to copy down the answer to a question or to look in their notes for something, and it will also ask for answers from some of the do-nows that we've done throughout the unit. We go over do-nows almost always, and if they're on the notebook check, we have gone over them. So if you're looking at your student's notebook check and notice that they're getting those questions wrong, it's because they're not copying down their work and they're not correcting it when we go over it in class. Over here in the room, we do have, if your child talks about their teal bin, their class bin, that's over here, and this is where they turn in work. But I encourage students to make sure they're turning in work to the correct spot, because if they put something late in that teal bin instead of the hot pink bin, it'll get buried under other papers and I won't know to look for it. If it's in the hot pink bin where it's supposed to be, about once a week I go through and I change the grades for students who have turned in late assignments.